Alex always loved the quiet mornings in their neighborhood. The sun filtered gently through the trees, birds sang softly, and the distant hum of on a weekend afternoon was as loud as it got. This was the kind of peace that made their suburban home feel like a sanctuary, a place they could control and cherish. But today was different. Alex's phone buzzed insistently just after dawn. The message preview was vague but chilling. Your property will be used for a community event. No exceptions. Confused, Alex blinked at the screen, then opened the full message. There was no sender name, just an anonymous HOA notification that felt like a declaration. Used for a community event, Alex muttered aloud. On my property. There was no explanation, no contact details, just a cold directive. Their heart thumped hard. Something wasn't right. Alex hurried outside, scanning the neighborhood for any signs of unusual activity. The streets looked normal, lawns freshly mowed, neighbors sipping coffee on porches, kids waiting for school buses. But the unease settled deeper. The HOA had always been strict. Karen, the HOA president, was known for her no-nonsense attitude. Her control over the community was ironclad, and her intolerance for any perceived rule-breaking was legendary. But this, taking over someone's property without permission, that was unthinkable. Alex tried calling the HOA's main line, but the phone rang endlessly. No one answered. Then they drove to the HOA office, hoping to talk face-to-face, but found the door locked tight. A small sign taped to the glass read, "Closed for community event preparation." No dates, no details. As Alex walked back home, a shadow passed over them, a whisper of a plan already in motion with no way to stop it. That evening, whispers started spreading through the neighborhood like wildfire. "Did you hear? Karen's throwing a huge wedding this weekend on Alex's property," one neighbor said nervously. "Impossible," said another. "There's no way she can do that without permission." But Alex knew better. When they confronted Karen directly at a neighborhood gathering later that week, her smile was tight and dismissive. "It's for the community, Alex," Karen said, folding her arms. "Sometimes personal sacrifices are necessary for the greater good." Alex felt their blood boil. "My property is not up for sacrifice. You can't just take it over." Karen's eyes narrowed. "I'm not asking, this is final." The tension in the room thickened like fog. Neighbors glanced nervously, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. That night, Alex lay awake, haunted by the injustice. The house felt smaller, invaded by the thought of hundreds of strangers trampling their lawn, loud music drowning the quiet, parking chaos clogging the street. What was Karen planning? And how had she convinced the HOA board to side with her? A quick online search revealed something odd. A sudden spike in community event approvals in recent months, all tied to Karen's leadership. Most had seemed innocent, block parties, charity drives, but something about this wedding felt different. Extravagant, almost too extravagant for their modest neighborhood. The deeper Alex dug, the more they sensed Karen's grip tightening. Not just on the HOA, but on their lives. By the end of the week, a mysterious delivery arrived at Alex's doorstep. A huge banner emblazoned with elegant script reading, "Welcome to the wedding of the year." Beneath it, a note signed simply, "From your HOA." The message was clear, resistance was futile. Alex's pulse quickened as they stared at the banner, the silent threat hanging in the air. This was no ordinary HOA overreach. It was personal. And Alex vowed then and there they wouldn't let Karen win, not without a fight. But as the weekend loomed closer, an icy question settled in Alex's mind. What else was Karen hiding behind the wedding? Because if this was just a party, why was the HOA so desperate to keep Alex quiet? The calm before the storm had shattered. And Alex was standing at the edge of a battle they hadn't signed up for, but were now forced to fight. The sun rose on Saturday morning like any other day, but for Alex, the quiet peace of dawn was gone forever. They pulled into their driveway, heart-pounding, expecting to see their pristine yard, the one they had nurtured through every season, every rain, every late-night landscaping project. Instead, Alex froze. Strangers, hundreds of them. Tents towered over the garden beds, a huge white marquee stretched across the lawn. Tables groaned under the weight of floral arrangements, and rows of folding chairs were already occupied by guests dressed in their Sunday best. Music blasted from large speakers, the deep bass rattling the windows. And right there at the center of it all, Corinne stood beaming, dressed in her signature power blazer as if she owned the entire neighborhood, which, for today, she did. "This is a community event," Corinne announced coolly as Alex approached, jaw clenched. "The HOA has sanctioned it. You'll just have to deal with it." Alex's voice cracked, barely able to keep calm. "You didn't even ask me. This is my property." Corinne smiled thinly, eyes sharp as knives. "The rules were clear. This event benefits the whole neighborhood. Your personal feelings don't matter." Around them, guests mingled obliviously, laughing and sipping champagne. Cars filled every available parking space along the street, some even blocking driveways. Children ran wild, trampling flower beds Alex had spent months cultivating. Anger surged hot and fast. Alex wanted to scream to stop this madness, but there was nowhere to turn. The HOA bylaws were murky, and Corinne's iron grip ensured no one would challenge her. The board had rubber-stamped the event without a second thought. But as Alex stood frozen on their own lawn, something even worse dawned. The damage. The grass was already scorched from the stage setup. Paths had been trampled into muddy tracks. The vegetable garden was a forgotten casualty, tables spilling over with discarded plates and napkins. This was no community gathering. This was a takeover. Through the noise, Alex spotted familiar faces, neighbors who had stayed home, eyes darting nervously, unwilling or too scared to confront Corinne's overwhelming force. With a sinking heart, Alex realized how isolated they truly were. By mid-afternoon, the chaos reached a fever pitch. A gust of wind ripped the marquee's side flaps loose, sending decorations flying like confetti. Corinne's forced smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly her staff to fix the mess. Meanwhile, the guests cheered, oblivious to the mounting tension. Alex moved through the crowd, quietly taking pictures and notes. Every broken branch, every patch of grass was a mark of invasion, a violation they would never forget. Then, just as Alex was about to confront Corinne again, a booming voice cut through the music, the wedding officiant calling everyone to attention. The ceremony began. As the bride and groom exchanged vows beneath the grand arch, Alex's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a party. It was a spectacle, a declaration of ownership. Corinne had pulled a fast one, turning Alex's home into a backdrop for an event no one had asked for. And the worst part? No one could stop it. When the ceremony ended, Corinne approached Alex with a smug look. "Enjoy the show," she sneered. "This is just the beginning, you'll get used to it." Alex wanted to say something fierce, to rip the mask off Corinne's smugness. But instead, they bit back words that would only give Corinne more power. Because deep down, Alex knew this wasn't just about a wedding. It was a power play, a calculated move to humiliate, to break their spirit. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the guests began to leave, Alex surveyed the wreckage. Their yard, once a sanctuary, was unrecognizable, a battlefield strewn with crushed petals and overturned chairs. But beneath the despair, a flicker of determination sparked. Corinne might have stolen their property for the day, but Alex wasn't done yet. And the wedding crash was only the opening act. The morning after the wedding felt like waking up inside a nightmare Alex couldn't shake. Their yard was a war zone, soil compacted by thousands of footsteps, crushed plants wilting in the harsh sun, and remnants of the celebration littering every corner. But more unsettling than the physical damage was the feeling that something else was wrong. Deeper, more sinister. As Alex picked up a broken lantern from the smashed garden bench, their phone buzzed with an anonymous tip. "Corinne's wedding was a cover. You need to find out what she's really hiding." Alex stared at the message, heart hammering. Was this some sick joke or a clue? Their gut told them it was real. Determined, Alex started digging. First, they combed through the HOA's public records, sifting through meeting minutes, budget reports, and event approvals. At first glance, everything seemed routine, until Alex noticed subtle irregularities. Large sums allocated to community improvements seemed to vanish into thin air. Contracts awarded to unfamiliar companies, invoices with suspiciously high prices. Then late one evening, while hacking through an HOA email chain they'd obtained from a neighbor, Alex overheard a conversation between Karen and someone unidentified. The tone was hushed but urgent. "Make sure everything is ready for Saturday," Karen said. "The wedding is just the distraction. No one can know what's happening underneath." Alex's pulse quickened. Underneath, what could Karen be hiding under their property? They decided to investigate the property itself. With the help of a local handyman friend, Alex inspected the yard from every angle, searching for anything unusual beneath the surface. That's when they noticed it, a series of freshly filled holes near the back fence, covered up with new soil. Something was buried. The discovery sent a chill down Alex's spine. That night, Alex returned under cover of darkness, flashlight in hand. With trembling fingers, they carefully dug in the suspicious spots, uncovering a small metal box sealed tight. Inside were documents, contract papers, bank statements, and strange blueprints marked Private Development Project. The papers suggested Karen was planning something far beyond a simple wedding, a covert operation to build unauthorized structures on community land, using Alex's property as a staging ground. If successful, it could mean permanent damage to the neighborhood and possibly thousands of dollars lining Karen's pockets. Anger and disbelief churned inside Alex. Karen's wedding had been a smokescreen designed to distract the neighborhood while she prepared her scheme in secret. But why use Alex's property? Was it just convenience, or did Karen want to punish Alex personally? The next morning, Alex confronted a few trusted neighbors with the evidence. Their faces fell in shock. "This explains the sudden influx of construction workers and the unusual deliveries," said Mrs., the elderly woman who lived 2 doors down. "I thought it was just new landscaping, but this..." Alex nodded grimly. "Karen's hiding something, and it's bigger than any of us imagined." Word spread slowly but surely. Some neighbors were too scared to get involved, fearful of Karen's retaliation. Others were furious, realizing they'd been manipulated. Amidst the tension, Alex felt isolated but also empowered. They weren't just fighting for their yard anymore. They were fighting for the entire community. But Karen was no fool. When rumors of the documents leaked, Alex started receiving veiled threats. Anonymous notes slipped under the door, strange cars parked near their house late at night, a loud bang on their window one evening. Karen was watching, and she was prepared to do whatever it took to silence Alex. As the community's patience wore thin and the HOA board grew restless, Karen doubled down on her charm offensive, organizing friendly neighborhood events, doling out favors, and spreading rumors that Alex was unstable, making it harder for anyone to take their claims seriously. Yet Alex refused to back down. With every threat, every insult, their resolve hardened. Because this wasn't just a fight over a lawn or a wedding anymore. It was a battle for truth and justice, and Alex was ready to expose Karen's entire operation, no matter the cost. But deep down, a cold whisper of doubt gnawed at Alex's mind. Was Karen only the tip of the iceberg? And if so, how far did this conspiracy run? The hidden agenda was only beginning to unravel, and the worst was yet to come. Alex's world had shifted. No longer just a homeowner angry about a stolen wedding day, they were now a detective in their own backyard, searching for every scrap of proof that could bring Karen's scheme crashing down. The problem? Karen's network was tight, her influence pervasive, and the HOA board was firmly in her pocket. Alex knew that playing by the rules wouldn't work. They had to be smart, secretive, and relentless. Under the cover of early mornings and late nights, Alex began their evidence hunt. The first step was documenting the damage from the wedding. Armed with their phone and a notebook, Alex moved meticulously through the yard, capturing photographs of every broken branch, crushed flower bed, and muddy path. The images were damning, but Karen had already spun a story that the event was fully authorized and community approved. So Alex needed more. Their next move was digging into HOA finances. After hours at the public records office and careful online searches, Alex uncovered a tangled web of contracts. Expensive landscaping companies hired for no visible work, invoices paid to shell companies with no traceable owners, and payments mysteriously routed through multiple accounts. Alex's pulse quickened. It was a classic money laundering scheme hiding in plain sight, and Karen was at the center. To be sure, Alex needed insider testimony. They reached out cautiously to a former HOA board member, Jim, who had resigned months earlier under mysterious circumstances. Jim agreed to meet in secret at a quiet. Jim's face was haunted. "Karen's been running this HOA like a personal empire," he whispered. "She's been diverting funds, approving projects that only benefit her friends, and using intimidation to keep people in line." He slid over a thick folder. Inside were emails, spreadsheets, and notes Jim had kept, a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. Alex felt a surge of hope, but also knew the risk. Karen had eyes everywhere. The next night, as Alex carefully scanned through the folder at home, a sudden noise made them freeze. The faint sound of footsteps outside their window, slow and deliberate. Their breath caught. Someone was watching. Heart-pounding, Alex turned off all the lights and slipped into the shadows, phone in hand. Minutes passed, then silence. Had the watcher left, or were they still lurking, waiting for the right moment? Alex knew they couldn't let fear stop them. If anything, Karen's threats only made the stakes clearer, and the need for action more urgent. Using the folder from Jim, Alex began drafting a formal complaint to the HOA board, detailing the financial misconduct, the unauthorized wedding event, and the damage to their property. But they didn't stop there. Alex also started recording conversations whenever possible, using a discreet recorder hidden in a pen. They wanted undeniable proof of Karen's manipulations and lies. One evening, at a neighborhood potluck arranged by Karen herself, Alex engaged her in casual conversation, steering it toward the topic of the wedding. Karen's eyes gleamed with false innocence. "We did what was best for the community," she said smoothly. "Sometimes tough decisions have to be made." Alex pressed gently, "But why my property? Why without my consent?" Karen's smile tightened, a flicker of menace flashing behind her eyes. "You're making this personal. It's about leadership and progress." Alex felt the temperature in the room shift. Karen's loyal supporters watched closely, their faces unreadable. That night, Alex emailed the complaint and evidence packet to the HOA board and the City Council's Ethics Committee. But they knew this was only the beginning. Karen wouldn't go down without a fight, and now that Alex had poked the hornet's nest, the backlash was inevitable. True to form, the very next morning, Alex's mailbox was stuffed with anonymous letters filled with threats and warnings. Stop digging or face the consequences. But Alex was ready. They had the proof, they had allies, and they had something Karen didn't, a refusal to back down. As the neighborhood held its breath, waiting to see if the HOA board would act, Alex steeled themselves for what was coming next. Because in this game of power and betrayal, the most dangerous move was yet to be made. The days that followed the submission of Alex's complaint were a whirlwind of hushed conversations and stolen glances. The neighborhood, once a calm sea of polite nods and carefully trimmed hedges, had shifted. The air was charged with an undercurrent of unrest. Behind closed doors, whispers spread like wildfire. "Did you see what Alex did?" Finally, someone stood up. "They have the evidence. Karen can't keep this under wraps much longer." But not everyone was ready to speak openly. Fear still gripped many, and Karen's shadow loomed large. Alex knew they couldn't fight this battle alone. It was time to build a coalition. Slowly, carefully, Alex reached out to neighbors who had quietly suffered under Karen's rule. The family who'd had their backyard invaded for a failed HOA garden project. The retired couple who had been fined unfairly for a cracked driveway. The young couple who'd been silenced when they tried to complain about noise violations. At first, many were hesitant. Karen's reputation for intimidation was well-earned. But when Alex showed them the evidence, the damning documents from Jim, the photographs of the wedding damage, the records of financial abuse, a spark ignited. One by one, neighbors began to rally. Secret meetings were arranged in living rooms, garages, and coffee shops. Plans were whispered over steaming mugs of tea. Strategy took shape. They called themselves the Silent Rebellion. Their mission, to reclaim the neighborhood from Karen's iron grip, to restore fairness, and to protect what was theirs. Alex became their unofficial leader, the face of the growing resistance. With every meeting, the group grew bolder. They shared stories of Karen's overreach, times when she'd blocked simple requests, twisted HOA rules, or spread rumors to discredit dissenters. They mapped out a plan to challenge Karen at the next HOA board meeting, armed with evidence, witness testimonies, and a united front. But Karen was not idle. The night before the big meeting, Alex's home was vandalized. Tires slashed, garden gnomes smashed, and graffiti scrawled across the driveway. Stay silent or pay. The message was clear. Instead of intimidation, it only fueled their determination. The meeting day arrived. The community center was packed beyond capacity. Supporters of Karen sat stiffly on one side, while the Silent Rebellion filled the other, their faces resolute. Karen took the stage first, her voice practiced and smooth. "We've accomplished great things," she declared. "This neighborhood thrives because of my leadership. Any accusations against me are baseless and defamatory." Then it was Alex's turn. Heart-pounding, Alex presented the evidence. Photos of the wedding devastation, Jim's documents exposing the financial irregularities, and the testimonies of neighbors who had suffered under Karen's regime. The room buzzed with murmurs. Karen's supporters tried to interrupt, but the chair called for order. A neighbor stood to speak, recounting how Karen had them help during a family emergency because they refused to back her plans. Another described how fines were levied unfairly to silence critics. Slowly the tide turned. The HOA board, previously loyal to Karen, seemed uneasy. Some exchanged glances, others avoided eye contact. Karen's composure cracked for the first time. Whispers spread that the city council's ethics committee was now investigating. The meeting ended with a vote, an unprecedented motion to form an independent committee to review Karen's conduct. Karen's face paled. The Silent Rebellion had struck a blow. As the crowd dispersed, neighbors approached Alex quietly. "Thank you," said one. "We've been waiting for someone to stand up." But beneath the victory lay a warning. Karen would not go quietly. Alex knew the battle was far from over. The rebellion was silent for now, but soon it would roar. Alex had barely caught their breath after the HOA board meeting when a surprising message arrived in their inbox. A direct email from a name they never expected. Parker, Karen's longtime assistant. Alex stared at the screen, disbelief swirling. Why would Karen's right-hand woman reach out? The email was brief, but loaded with implication. "I know what Karen is capable of. I've seen the darker side of the HOA. I want to help. Meet me tonight at the old library on Maple Street. Come alone." Heart-pounding, Alex debated the risks. Could this be a trap, or a chance to gain a critical ally? Trusting their instincts, Alex decided to go. The old library was a dusty, forgotten building, its windows boarded and lights dim. Inside, waited, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I'm glad you came," whispered. "Karen's been hiding more than just illegal contracts. There's something much bigger, something that could destroy the neighborhood forever." Alex leaned in, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" pulled out a folder thick with papers and photos. "Look at this." The documents revealed shocking plans. Karen had been secretly negotiating with a major developer to sell large swaths of community land, including parts of Alex's property, for a high-rise commercial complex. The wedding had been a diversion to distract residents while permits were quietly pushed through City Hall. "If this goes through," said, voice trembling, "our entire neighborhood will be demolished, replaced with concrete and parking lots. Karen stands to profit handsomely." Alex's stomach churned. The stakes were far higher than they'd imagined. "Why are you helping me?" Alex asked. Hesitated. "I believed in Karen once, but when I saw her destroy families and silence voices, I couldn't be part of it anymore. She's ruthless." Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside the library. Karen's men hissed. They had to move fast. Together, they the documents onto a flash drive and slipped out through a back door, just as shadowy figures appeared at the front. Back at home, Alex uploaded the files to a secure cloud and sent copies to the media and city officials. This was no longer just a local HOA issue. It was breaking wide open. The following day, reporters swarmed the neighborhood. Cameras flashed as they questioned Karen's leadership and the secret development plans. Karen, caught off guard, lashed out with denials and accusations, labeling Alex a troublemaker and a disgruntled former employee. But the evidence was overwhelming. Under pressure, the city council put a temporary hold on all permits related to Karen's project. The neighborhood buzzed with renewed hope. Neighbors who had been silent now spoke openly, emboldened by the truth. But Karen's fury only deepened. In a final act of desperation, she attempted to leverage a little-known clause in the HOA bylaws, claiming Alex had violated community rules by investigating the property without permission, threatening legal action and fines. Alex braced for the fight of their life. But now, with insider knowledge and the community rallying behind them, they felt ready. The war wasn't over, but the tide was turning. Karen's empire was cracking. And Alex, once the victim, was becoming the neighborhood's unexpected hero. The neighborhood was no longer a quiet, it had become a powder keg ready to explode. With the city council's temporary halt on Karen's development permits and the media spotlight shining fiercely on the HOA, Karen's grip was slipping, fast. But Karen was nothing if not cunning. She unleashed a calculated counterattack. Late one night, Alex received a sealed envelope slipped under their door. Inside were copies of supposed violations against Alex, accusations of trespassing on HOA property, unauthorized surveillance, and disturbing the peace. The letter warned of hefty fines and possible eviction proceedings. Alex's heart pounded. The HOA had weaponized its bylaws to silence dissent. But Alex refused to back down. Instead, they doubled down. With insider knowledge, Alex uncovered a crucial flaw in Karen's legal claims. The so-called violations were based on distorted interpretations of ambiguous rules Karen herself had drafted to maintain control. Armed with this, Alex contacted a sharp HOA lawyer sympathetic to their cause. The lawyer's verdict was clear. Karen's charges were baseless and could be challenged in court. Moreover, Karen's misuse of the HOA bylaws could be grounds for her removal. Word spread quickly. Neighbors who had feared retaliation began to voice support openly. At the next HOA board meeting, tension crackled in the air like electricity. Karen arrived surrounded by her loyalists, but the silent rebellion had grown into a formidable force, with nearly half the community attending in support of Alex. The meeting began with Karen attempting to dismiss the allegations as personal attacks. But Alex stood firm, presenting not only the evidence of Karen's misdeeds, but also the legal opinion debunking the fabricated violations. A heated debate ensued. Karen's closest allies scrambled to defend her, but cracks appeared. Some whispered doubts, others sat silently, eyes lowered. Suddenly, a surprise witness took the floor. A former HOA contractor who admitted to being pressured by Karen to submit inflated invoices and falsify documents. The room fell silent. The board chair called for a vote of no confidence. One by one, board members stood to cast their votes. The tally was undeniable. Karen lost. She was stripped of her HOA presidency and suspended pending a full ethics investigation. A wave of cheers erupted. For the first time in years, the neighborhood breathed freely. Alex's phone buzzed with messages of gratitude and relief. The silent rebellion had won a major victory. But victory felt bittersweet. Karen's reign was over, but the wounds ran deep. Neighbors whose homes had been damaged still faced costly repairs. The community's trust was fractured, and the threat of the developer's plans loomed. Alex realized the fight wasn't just about removing Karen. It was about rebuilding the neighborhood from the inside out. As the sun set over the quiet streets, Alex stood on their porch, gazing at their yard. They thought of the wedding that had stolen their peace, of the hidden agendas, threats, and betrayals, and of the allies who had risked everything. A new chapter was beginning, one where the neighborhood could reclaim its soul. But as the last light faded, a cold thought crept in. Karen's empire might be broken, but she was far from defeated. And somewhere in the shadows, her next move was already in motion. The air in the neighborhood was thick with tension and hope. Karen's ousting had been a monumental victory for Alex and the silent rebellion, but it wasn't the end of the story. Deep down, Alex knew Karen wouldn't fade quietly. She was a storm waiting to rage again. Days after the board meeting, the neighborhood received an unexpected invitation. Karen was hosting a community apology event at the very property she had once hijacked for that extravagant wedding. The irony wasn't lost on Alex. Curious and wary, they decided to attend, eyes sharp for any tricks. The afternoon was surprisingly calm. Karen arrived dressed down, her usual armor replaced by a softer, almost vulnerable demeanor. She began with a speech, acknowledging mistakes and promising to make amends. But as the crowd listened, Alex noticed subtle signs, whispers between Karen and a small group, quick glances, coded nods. Something wasn't right. As the event wound down, Karen's followers invited neighbors to tour a nearby construction site. Many, exhausted from the months of conflict, hesitated but followed, hoping to see progress on community projects Karen touted as beneficial. Alex trailed behind, senses alert. At the site, a crowd gathered around a newly erected billboard emblazoned with the developer's logo, and plans for a massive complex threatening the neighborhood's character. The shock was palpable. Suddenly appeared by Alex's side. "She's planning to sell off more land, using this apology as a distraction," whispered urgently. "We have to stop this before it's too late." Alex's mind raced. Karen's apology was a ploy to lower defenses, rally support, and push the developer's agenda. But Alex had one final card. That night, Alex coordinated with the city council and local media. They organized a town hall meeting to expose Karen's new scheme publicly, bringing in experts and legal advisors to challenge the permits and halt construction. The turnout was massive, the neighborhood united like never before. Karen showed up, defiant but cornered. Faced with mounting evidence and public outrage, she faltered. Under intense questioning, she admitted to negotiating with the developer but claimed it was for the greater good. The room erupted in disbelief. Alex stood, voice steady but fierce. "Your greater good was never ours," Alex said. "It was your profit and your power." In the days that followed, the developer its proposal under legal and public pressure. Karen's remaining influence crumbled. The HOA began a transparent restructuring process, inviting community input and fostering genuine dialogue. Alex's property slowly healed from the scars of that fateful wedding day. New plants replaced the old, fresh soil tilled and nourished. But the real restoration was in the neighborhood's spirit. As for Karen, she quietly moved away, the rumors swirling about legal battles and personal ruin. Alex stood on their porch one evening, watching neighbors gather for a block party, laughter, music, and the scent of barbecue filling the air. The fight had been long and hard, but the sweetest revenge wasn't in the chaos or the confrontation. It was in reclaiming a home, a community, and a future. Alex smiled, knowing that sometimes the most powerful victory comes not from retaliation, but from resilience and the courage to stand up when it matters most.